the ups and downs along the way. She's a cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk?
Welcome to Girl Talk. I'm Regina Ayars.
And I'm Carol Voisin.
And Girl Talk is a lively discussion of the opportunities, challenges, and successes of women in their daily lives. We interview women living in the Rogue Valley who are making a difference in our communities. Today we're talking with women who are activists in our community. Each has a different focus, as their commonality is being an activist. Carol, would you like to introduce our first guest?
Our first guest is Karen Caldwell. We've known each other, I just learned, since 1985. So Karen, you were at Pacific School of Religion at that time when I was there as well. Would you give us a little bit about your background and introduce yourself, please?
Okay. So I am a retired now, not at that time,
Right.
but I'm retired now from United Church of Christ Ministry. I've been here in the Rogue Valley since 1985. I came here immediately after graduation and have been here 34 years now, raised a family here, and continue to be active in things that are going on here. I've worked in terms of advocacy on universal health care and on climate change, and most recently in the last few months with the National Alliance NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, on issues about the Jackson County Jail proposal and other issues in the legislature to aid people who suffer from mental illness.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been a member of NAMI?
A few months, 6 months or something like that. Mm-hmm.
And what does NAMI actually do?
NAMI is a national organization. We have a statewide chapter, NAMI Oregon, and that's broken down into affiliates in local communities. I'm part of Southern Oregon NAMI. What we do is provide supports and advocacy on mental illness. So we have educational programs, how to get through the mental health system for both consumers and their loved ones who are supporting them. We have support groups for peers and also for families. And we have advocacy. We advocate in the state legislature. We advocate now through Southern Oregon in our county commission and even in our cities.
So do you have a physical location where people come to see you, or do you go to them? You said you educate people and you work with people to work the system. How do you do that? Where do you do that?
We don't have a facility of our own, but we schedule our classes and events and meetings in various public places like the Smullen Center or the hospital or the libraries and so forth. So we have a mailing list and we do publicity to let people know that we're here.
Okay. So one of the things we want to do in having these two sessions on activists, what do you think, to you, what does it mean to be an activist? Can you elaborate a bit on that? And then Regina and I will jump in as well.
Okay. Well, to me, I was trying to think about this, and I don't have a definition, but to me it's just one of the ways it's possible to be in community. So I've been doing it for a long time, but there are other ways of being in community too. I mean, some people do quilting, right? And they do it with a group of people and they have relationships around what they love doing, the creative tasks that they have, and other people do services, They fix meals for people who are homeless at the Methodist Church here in Ashland, or they, collect food for the food bank.
So what's the difference between someone who collects food for the food bank and you as an activist with NAMI? What's the difference? Are they both activists?
I don't know. I'm not going to like try
Oh,
to
okay.
define the word activist, but
I
I'd
was
say
just trying to figure that out.
in terms of what you do on a daily basis, somebody who collects food for the food bank is involved in direct service. So we need those people because otherwise we wouldn't have enough services available for people. But we also need to look at the system as a whole. We need to look at our delivery system for services. We need to look at our laws in terms of are they just? Do they discriminate against people or do they include all people on an equal basis? So the way I look at it, I want to be a part of the bigger system in terms of advocating for justice, for human rights, for human dignity, in the way the system is organized.
Sort of for me, an activist has an end product. And that end product is some kind of change in the community toward justice and equality and fairness. So an activist is a little different from someone who collects food, for the food bank. Because there's an end product that's going to affect lives directly, but it's a process involved in persuading those who have power to move in the direction of justice and equality. I mean, for me, that's sort of the end product. What do you think, Regina?
Well, I think it's a matter of being outspoken about whatever topic whatever you're being an activist about. And I wouldn't have called myself an activist until I moved to Ashland. And one reason is, for me personally, I have the time to get involved in whatever matters to me. And I consider myself a strong feminist. One way I do that is by actually co-hosting this show. And this is a way for me to be outspoken about supporting women and advocating for women. And for me, it's being, vocal, having the courage, to speak out to people in power, or to speak out in general about whatever is important to you, That's how it's evolved for me, and I like being called an activist now. I don't think I would have liked being called one 20 years ago. I would have never thought of myself that way.
Oh.
No, I definitely wasn't back then. I was a 9-to-5er. At work. That's about all I did.
Oh, no, I was an activist. You had to be an activist at Pacific School of Religion almost.
Oh, yeah. I'd say, going on 40 years in various issues and different communities that I've been a part of. Yeah.
So what, Karen, what personal values support your activism? You mentioned a couple. Do you want to elaborate on those or introduce some new ones?
Well, I think social justice is kind of the overarching vision. I have a religious tradition, of course, since I went to seminary and worked in the church. So to me, it's a religious tradition to be at work in the community for justice.
So it's like a calling?
Yeah, it's a calling,
Okay.
yes, I would say. And if I were to go back into the Bible and say, how do we know we're called to justice? Well, there's that passage from Micah that says, what does God require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with God?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a tough order, though. That's hard to follow that path.
Right.
It
You can't expect perfection. So that's another little caveat. So, do the best we can with what we got.
Right, yeah.
So are there other passages that you found?
Oh, well, since I studied Bible, I think there are lots of passages. I think the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures in particular, have this really huge and long-term prophecy tradition that goes back to Moses, So, Moses was, in my mind, the first metaphorically speaking, community organizer, because he was called by God at the burning bush to go into Egypt and bring his people out to freedom. And that was hard for him, and he protested, but he finally went and did it with the help of God and the help of the community that he was a part of, and they reached the promised land. So to me, that is a metaphor for organizing in community, for the rights of human beings, and for freedom and for peace.
So
Well said.
community organizers are activists by default. I mean, they're out there organizing their community and they're being activists, yeah. Right, so it's, and that's why, since I came to Ashland, I've become part of the community, and therefore I feel like I'm more of an activist for my community and for certain segments of the community. And like I said before, I wasn't as engaged in my community when I was working full-time and lived in California. So I think that is really, feeling a sense of being part of the people around you that you're living with, and wanting to support them in some particular way.
Yeah, it's being part of a larger whole, for
Yes.
sure.
Right.
And being part of a community. And it's important to know the values of your community and your own personal values. And usually those coincide. And there's one for me that not only justice is definitely one, but fairness. That to me, if there's anything that will rile my activism, it's if I see something that's not fair. When equality is really important, when one person breaks the law and gets put in jail, and yet another person who breaks the law doesn't, yet it's almost the same thing, it's not fair. And maybe the law isn't fair, but when I see that kind of discrepancy in the action of those who have power, that really gets me going. And so fairness is really important, even in decisions that are made around budgets, anything of that sort. Fairness is really, really important for me in terms of my personal, and I think community also has a sense of what fairness is. So activism for me has the fairness component in it.
It's being a part of something larger than yourself.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yes. Yeah, that's what community is, I think, many times. So what is your vision for bettering the world as a woman activist? And I mean vision, I'm not talking about what you've done or what you're going to do, but what's your vision for bettering the world?
Yeah, something that holds it all together.
Like what?
Well, when I was in my 20s, I heard Michael Harrington speak. He was a socialist who authored books and spoke. So I heard him in Portland, and I can't remember anything he said except for his closing line, which was, "People, can't we just treat each other decently?" And that's what stuck with me. And I think, it's just treating people decently and not taking advantage of them, not oppressing them, not casting them out of a community that they want to be a part of. So that's kind of like just the theme or the motto in my mind. In terms of like emotionally, it's like you say, the stuff that riles you up. My mother was not an activist. She was a housewife, which is what she would have described herself as, and what she wanted to be. I mean, that was what she wanted to be. She didn't want to work outside the home. She wanted to be at home and run the home and raise the kids and stuff. But she had this sort of emotional thing that every once in a while, if she was reading the paper, or if she saw some news on television about some cruelty between human beings, she would just sort of like groan and say, "How can people be so mean?" And the anguish of that in her soul just has always stuck with me.
you.
So when I see children on the border being separated from their families, to me that's just cruelty for no reason. It's an outrage, and it's just plain mean. So I think that's what riles me up, and that's what keeps me headed in the direction I'm going.
Keeps you motivated, huh?
Have you been to the border?
I haven't been there.
Any plans to go?
I don't have any plans right now.
Because there are folks in Ashland who
Yes, there are.
there
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I was just curious.
Are they there long-term, or are they,
Well, they've been there quite a while.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and what about you, Regina? What's your
What's it-
vision for bettering the world?
Ooh, wow, that sounds like such a big question. My vision for bettering the world. Well, I try to stay focused locally, although I can get agitated about what's going on in our country right now. And I watch way too much news. But I feel that I can really see the difference that I can make right here in Ashland, in the Rogue Valley, and then I have done some lobbying at the state level and have participated for the bill that was passed in 2017 for pay equity for women. And to be a part of that effort and then to actually see a law change or be created was very empowering. And so my vision is to continue my work, supporting women locally, as we do here. We showcase women. That's not a world vision, but I feel like I can make a difference. And I want to be able to feel like what I'm doing, how I'm spending my time, is making a difference in the world. And I think if one person makes that effort, somehow all those little efforts pile up
Yeah.
and combine. It's kind of like prayer, I guess, if everybody's praying for something, that it can make a difference. And that's very satisfying for me.
My vision for bettering the world is so simple that I'm embarrassed to say what it is.
Tell
It's
us.
simply love your neighbor as yourself. That's it.
It's the golden rule.
No, that's not the golden rule.
What's the golden rule?
Golden
then?
rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But
Okay.
to love your neighbor as yourself is very, very different. Because how do you love yourself? Do you take care of yourself? Do you make sure that you are the best you can be? Only then do you accept yourself for who you are. Then and only then can you really love another, because you know who you are, and then you will know who another is. And until you know who you are, you can't know who another is. And that's when you love another, then the world changes. And that's when community, I think, really becomes deep and constructive and holistic. But it takes that. It's so simple. I just think, and I don't think it's the golden rule. Every time I think about the golden rule, I think, I have a problem with the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, I could say a lot of things about that I would do, but I don't want others to do to me. But to love another, to love your neighbor, who is anyone who's near you at any time, as yourself. To me, that's all it is.
That's hard, though.
It's
That is,
simple,
but
it's
it's
very
hard.
How is it hard?
Well, I can't say that I love everybody that I interact with in my community. I cannot.
Well, what do you think love
honestly.
is then?
Well, it's respect for another person, or belief in their. Well, it's not belief in the way that they believe, but I don't know. Love. That's a big word for me.
Yeah.
It's a big word. I can tolerate a lot of people and differences, but that's
No,
definitely
that's not
loving.
it. That's not it.
Tolerating people is different than loving people. Absolutely.
Okay, it's agape. It's unconditional.
Oh, and that's hard.
Unconditional.
That
There
is
are
hard.
no ties. no ties. I do something for you, you don't have to do something for me.
Quid pro quo.
It's not quid pro quo. It's the opposite of that. It's literally loving your neighbor as yourself. In other words, agape, unconditional love. There are no strings attached, none. And that, to me, that's my vision for bettering the world. If I can just do it better, I can do it a little bit, but if I can just do it better.
Yeah. It's a big topic.
So who do you hold, Karen?
We're going to be playing a video, aren't we?
Yeah, but we're going to do it at 10 minutes.
Yeah, we're at 10 minutes.
Oh, we're at 10 minutes. Okay,
Yes.
we need to see the video.
Yeah. Are we going to have time to do that now? Because I think you did the...
I didn't see the 10 minutes.
Here we go.
Women won the vote in 1917 in a fight for restitution and equality. They put their bodies on the line, health, hunger strikes, and picket signs. Dangerous women, yes, but a bittersweet victory.
Got about,
It's dangerous to stand alone, dangerous to say your body is your own, dangerous to break from tyranny. Well-behaved women don't make history. How dangerous are you willing to be? Did you know for more than 1,000 years, Haudenosaunee women had it better here? They were equals, held the land, chose chiefs as mothers of the clan. And these dangerous women gave the lie to Eve's sin. Seneca Falls, 1848, Western woman to put an end to her subjugated state. Coalitions changed, years passed by, and franchise white women came the cry. But some brave voices rejected that injustice. It's dangerous to stand alone, dangerous to say your body is your own, dangerous to break from tyranny. Well-behaved women don't make history. How dangerous are you willing to be? Now there are women whose wisdom knows no age, like Elizabeth Cady Stanton or Matilda Jocelyn Gage, who knew their liberation could only be for each and all, who learned from native neighbors and they heeded their call to know that none are free when one of us is not. Stanton and Gage, remember their names, while others retreated, they remained steadfast, always to the claim that the vote alone is not enough to change, no matter what the danger. It's dangerous to break from tyranny. Well-behaved women don't make history. The vote was won, but who remains outside? Whose voice suppressed when class and race divide? Be like the mothers of the clan. Take back power to our hands. Know where we are and where we ought to be. Bend the arc to our authority. Be dangerous. Let's get dangerous. Be dangerous to make our history.
Okay, we have time for one question. Karen, are you a dangerous woman?
Well, I like to think of myself as a peaceful woman. I suppose there might be people who take my failure to be reticent as dangerous, but I am persistent, I would say.
She persists. Remember when they said that about
Oh, yes, she is.
Warren, Elizabeth Warren, yes. She persists. She got in
Right.
trouble.
That's good.
The
Okay.
line I like from it is, well-behaved women don't make history. And I think that's so true. You've got to get out there
We do.
and be outspoken.
That's right.
Yeah. So how about you, Carol?
Yes, I am. And I'm a troublemaker, both. Dangerous and troublemaker.
Okay.
Yes, I hold
Great-
those.
great
I have
titles.
no doubt about it.
Right. Well, I think that's about all the time we have today. I'd like to thank Karen for being on the show.
Thank you, Karen.
And I'd like her to continue to be a little dangerous. And Carol, you want to thank our volunteers.
Yes, we have Wanda, who is our director, John, graphics, David, teleprompter, Gary, audio and camera, and stage manager, and JC, lighting and camera, and Nora. Thank you all volunteers. We couldn't do this without you. Many, many thanks.
Absolutely. So Girl Talk can be seen on Rogue Valley TV, Channel 15, with Ashland HomeNet, or Channel 182 with Charter, or that's Spectrum now, at 3 p.m. on Saturdays and 6:30 on Thursdays, or on demand online at roguevalleytv.sou.edu. Just click on the public access link at the top of the page and then search for Girl Talk. Girl Talk can also be heard live at noon on Sundays on KSKQ Community Radio at 98.5 FM in Ashland and 94.1 FM in Medford. We hope you've learned something new today about activism, and you'll join us again soon. Bye.
Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk.
Okay, girls.
Girl talk.
All right.
Before dawn, the coffee is gone. The kids are still sleeping, but not for long. Cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? A chat with the ladies about their day, the ups and downs along the way. She's a cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Makes way less than the guy next door. She knows she's worth much more. Girl